everybody, and welcome back here. Another episode of the BSN podcast. Today is Thursday, July 7th. Hope everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It's July 7th. It's Thursday. One more day till Friday, then it's the weekend. Looking forward to the weekend. A lot of good sports on. Yankees will be up in Boston for a 4-game set that starts tonight. Mets will be back home tonight. That series will go through the weekend as well, back at Citi Field against the Marlins. So two good series coming up for the Yankees and the Mets. Last night was a wild night in baseball. It was a wild night specifically for the New York Yankees. Game got delayed. It was supposed to start at 7, got delayed an hour and 15. Yankees, the game starts at 8:14. It was supposed to start, 7:05, 7:10. And the Yankees come, they the rain and then in Pittsburgh. So obviously game gets delayed. Pirates start an hour late, and a wild night. A night that started off pretty normal. With the first 4 innings, there was no runs. And then from the 5th all the way into the 9th, the Yankees scored runs each inning. 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th, 5 in the 8th, and 6 more just for good measure in the 9th. And all 6 of those came up against Van Meter, who was the second baseman to start the game, so the position player came in. So Yankees get a big win. We'll get to it in the second topic today, so I don't want to go too in depth here. Mets also got the win yesterday as well. Come back in the 9th with a run, and then put up a big crooked number in the 10th. They win 8-3. So Mets get the series win in Cincinnati, take 2 of 3. They'll be back in action tonight. Thursday here to open up a first of a 4-game set back at Citi Field against the Marlins, and the Yankees will be in Boston tonight to open up a 4-game set as well, first of 4 against Boston, and that will be that series will be the Sunday night game as well. So the Sunday night baseball game will be Yankees-Red Sox, so looking forward to that, and a big series for the Yankees, because right now the Yankees, 14 games up in the division. We're in a great position, in terms of the lead, in terms of winning games. We, had a really bad night on Tuesday rather, bounced back yesterday, had a great game. But a big opportunity for the Yankees to continue to expand this series, this division lead. You can continue to expand this. You take 3 or 4 in Boston, you move this division lead to 16 games. You're looking at you're cruising to the finish line. Then you don't even have to worry about it. If Boston takes 3 or 4 and gets it back to 9 in the division or 8 or sweeps you, then you're like, all right, we still got a battle on our hands. But you take 3 or 4 in Boston, you go in Boston and still win games, you'll be in a good spot. So a big series coming up. Looking forward to that. Topics for today's podcast. Got a lot to get to, NFL, and then we'll get to the Yankees-Pirates. But we're going to start off today with the Browns. Yes, the Baker Mayfield drama is finally over. The Browns have traded Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers, and the Browns get a conditional 2024 draft pick, which can turn into a higher round depending on how much Mayfield plays. But the drama, one of the bigger stories this entire offseason, is finally over. Baker Mayfield is out. The Browns have gotten rid of their first-round draft pick from 2017, and they are now all completely committed to Deshaun Watson. Whenever he plays, whatever happens with him, he's their guy, and now Carolina is stuck with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. A very interesting situation in Carolina, so we'll get to that. We'll get to the Yankees, like I mentioned, beating the Pirates 16-0. A wild game. 16 runs, 22 hits for the Yankees. It was just a crazy night, and yet again, this Yankee team just shows us what they're capable of when they're on. Even Joey Gallo had a home run. That's not something you see every day. When you do, you have to admire it and savor it, because he probably won't hit another until September. So, a good win for the Yankees. We'll get to it. And we'll finish things off with the New York sports update. Like I said, Yankees today against the Red Sox. Mets as well against the Marlins. So, a lot to look forward to over the weekend, Thursday through Sunday, with 2 big 4-game sets for the Yankees and the Mets. All right, so with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So the Baker Mayfield drama is finally over. Through all the rumors, all of the back and forth, this team's involved, this team wants him, this team doesn't. A little bit after the season in January, February, there was rumors that the Giants might be involved in Baker Mayfield, might be interested in getting Baker Mayfield. There was, the Seahawks being involved, the Browns, people saying, okay, maybe the Browns keep him, the Panthers being involved, all teams. It was almost like every one of the NFL teams had some sort of involvement in this Baker Mayfield thing. And just a couple days ago, you got the report that the Seahawks are not interested in Mayfield. They're not interested in bringing him in. They are committed to Drew Lock. They believe Drew Lock is going to be their guy. I don't, who knows how long, but they're going to have Drew Lock. They're committed to Drew Lock for this season. And that was the report that came out, 3 days ago, earlier in the week. And then you wonder, all right, like that, so they're not interested in Mayfield. So the only team that's left is got to be the Panthers. And that's the truth as Baker Mayfield gets traded to the Panthers. So Baker Mayfield traded to the Panthers from Browns for a conditional 2024 draft pick. And this is where drafting is kind of crazy because now you have Baker Mayfield, the 2017 first overall pick, on the Panthers, and the 2017 third overall pick, two quarterbacks, two guys that coming out of college, going into the NFL, were thought to be franchise cornerstones. Everybody thought they were going to be, franchise, changers. Their cornerstones. They were going to be their franchise guy. Now you have Baker Mayfield, the 2017 first overall pick. Now you have Sam Darnold, the 2017 third overall pick, going to compete for a job this year in training camp. And now you look back at that 2017 draft and you look at it and say, Mayfield did not work out. Darnold didn't work out. Josh Rosen was a complete mess. You look at the two best quarterbacks coming out of that draft, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And those two quarterbacks going into the draft, although I was very high on Lamar Jackson going into the draft. I was. And coming out of the draft, I thought the Ravens got a great player because like I've said with Lamar Jackson a lot, coming out of the draft, you didn't see a quarterback be able to run so good since Michael Vick in his prime, and it's the truth. And Jackson has brought that to the field day in and day out, Sunday in and Sunday out whenever he's out there with the Ravens, and he's been great. Josh Allen as well. The small school Wyoming. Nobody knows about Wyoming. And geez, the year prior they were playing in the Idaho Potato Bowl. Nobody knows anything about Wyoming football. Josh Allen getting picked by the Bills. Those are the two big quarterbacks. And now you look at the one from Oklahoma, big-time school. USC, big-time school. And UCLA, big-time school. All three of those quarterbacks didn't work out. And it's going to be an interesting battle. It really is going to be an interesting training camp battle between Mayfield and Darnold. And the biggest loser of this all, I'll continue to say, because you oftentimes talk about winners and losers of trade. The biggest loser of this is the 2017 NFL draft. Because now you have Mayfield not on the team that drafted him. Darnold, obviously played last year with Carolina after the Jets traded him last offseason. And then Josh Rosen was a complete, waste of time, in Arizona. Then he was with the Buccaneers, Dolphins. He was everywhere. He's awful. He's obviously a bust as well. So the biggest loser of all this is the 2017 NFL draft, and it's going to be really interesting come training camp. And now you look at Carolina, and you look at their quarterback situation. They got a real interesting situation on their hands because now you have a training camp battle between Darnold and Mayfield, and I like that they're doing that. I do. And Matt Rule, as a first-time NFL head coach coming out of Baylor, obviously getting the job a couple years ago, coming out of Baylor, what he did to Baylor was great. He completely turned that program into an absolute. That program was in a dark spot. He turned that program around, and the program now is in a real good spot. Making a big-time bowl game. Really good team last year. He turned that program around. But now Matt Rule, as a young NFL head coach, has got a real sticky situation, and he has had no help at the quarterback position. He went from Will Grier to Teddy Bridgewater, Darnold. Now you add Mayfield to the mix. There is a lot going on in Carolina, and it's really tough to get a good gauge of what, and that's what I feel like now, you really don't know what to expect in Carolina. Because if Mayfield's the quarterback, what are you going to get out of Mayfield? A guy that's going to throw 17 touchdowns and about 13, 14 picks? What are you going to get out of Darnold? Are you going to get a guy that is sloppy in the pocket? A guy that has no confidence whatsoever. You know, a guy that does not make smart throws. When he's under pressure, does not throw the ball away. Like, the Panthers right now, I don't think got better with this trade. A lot of people out there think that the Panthers got a great, they got Mayfield. Great, this is awesome. But when you really look at Baker Mayfield, what has he done in his career that's significant? What has he done in his career that makes you think he is going to all of a sudden blossom out and succeed in Carolina when he's not even guaranteed the starter job? He's got to compete with Sam Darnold for the starting job. Out of all of this, to be honest, I think the winner of this is the Browns because they got rid of Mayfield, who was a big issue with them. Obviously, both sides kind of felt like, look, I mean, you could really look at it as there is no winners in this deal. There really isn't no winners. Is Mayfield the winner? I don't know. He might be a backup this season. You know, is the Panthers the winner? Not really. Now they're stuck with two quarterbacks that were supposed to be franchise guys and have been really underwhelming throughout their career. Darnold definitely ain't the winner because now he's got to compete for the job, and there's a chance if he doesn't get the job this year, he's a backup for the rest of his career. And I think Darnold, and I've said that, I think we've all kind of got to take the stance now on Sam Darnold. He's going to be a solid backup. He's a solid backup in the NFL. Gay's ruined him. He's not a starter. He's a solid backup. He's a guy that if you need in there, if a quarterback gets injured, he can do just enough to keep your team above water. But he's not going to win playoff games. He's not going to get you to playoffs. He's not going to, light it up and throw 35 touchdowns in a season and be a top 5 in the MVP voting. He's just not that quarterback. We thought he was going to be, but Adam Gase came into the equation. And not only did that mess up Darnold, but it messed up the Jets, as we all know. Don't need to go down that road. So and this is the crazy thing with this Baker Mayfield drama, is if Mayfield would have went to the Seahawks, it would have been like, all right, good deal for the Seahawks. Because Mayfield's better than Drew Lock. But is Mayfield really better than Darnold? What are you really getting out of this? And now Matt Rule has got a real interesting situation on his hands. I think the Panthers are better off going out and trading for the Panthers are better off going out and trading for a Jimmy G than Mayfield. Jimmy G's still out there. The Panthers are better off going out and trading for Jimmy Garoppolo than they are going out and trading for Baker Mayfield. Because Garoppolo wins. He has playoff experience. He's just coming off of a year where he took a Niners team that not many people expected them to do much to the NFC Championship game and was 10 minutes away from beating the Rams, who end up going on to win the Super Bowl, as we all know. I mean, geez, if Jaquizy Tartt keeps that ball, if he intercepts that ball that he dropped, the Niners, it would be a Niners-Bengals Super Bowl. So you passed up on a quarterback that's on the market who got his team one game away from the Super Bowl, got his team to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, as we all know, against Kansas City, for Baker Mayfield, who has been very underwhelming. So I find this really interesting. And I don't think because a lot of times, you know how I am on this podcast, a lot of times try to pick out the winners in deals. When there's a trade out there, I try to pick out who's the winner, who's the loser. This deal, when you come away with this deal, I can't sit here and say Mayfield's the winner because now he's got to compete for the job. And if he doesn't get it, he's going to be a backup either way, which he would have been in Cleveland. And he might have started for Cleveland if Watson was suspended, which most likely he will be. We don't know yet, but most likely he will be suspended. Darnold's not the winner because now he's also got to compete for a job, and if he doesn't get it, there's a good chance he's a backup for the rest of his career. And like I mentioned, Panthers really aren't the winners because now they got a quarterback competition on their hands, and no matter who wins the quarterbacking competition, do you really trust either of these guys? And there's a guy that got his team one game away from the Super Bowl that's still out there on the market, and you go ahead and say, no, we're not going to do it. And that being Jimmy G. And the Browns, I don't want to say the Browns are a winner because we all knew that Mayfield wasn't going to be playing on the Browns anyway this year, so they prepared as if he wasn't even going to be on them. The Browns do get a draft pick, but it's not much. So unless if Mayfield or Darnold, and I'll always say this, and you got to give them the benefit of doubt. If somehow they turn back into the form that we saw them coming out of college, turn back into, Darnold being that guy coming out of college, that was, everyone thought that he was that, Darnold thought that, I thought he was a generational talent. A lot of people thought Darnold was going to go number one. He didn't. But a lot of people saw him as a generational talent. There was a lot of people out there, some of the draft experts, who thought Darnold coming out of college was the best prospect they've ever seen since Andrew Luck. And Andrew Luck coming out of college was one of the greatest prospects everyone ever seen. And, we all know how Andrew Luck's career went. Very good quarterback, but got completely blown up because the Colts did a terrible job building him an offensive line. And then when he retires, Colts now have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So it was like they were just waiting for Andrew Luck to retire. So, very interesting trade. And like I've mentioned already, if Mayfield would have went to the Seahawks, I would have said this is a good deal for the Seahawks. Because Mayfield's better than Drew Lock. And Drew Lock's terrible. But are we really going to sit here and say that Mayfield's better than Darnold? He might be. But he's not, he might be a little bit better. But there's not much of a difference in terms of Mayfield and Darnold. There's a big difference in Jimmy G and Sam Darnold. Jimmy G's a lot better than Sam Darnold. If the Panthers would have went out and got Jimmy G. Now, look, who knows what the Niners are asking for? Who knows what the situation is there? I could sit here and say, they should have traded for Jimmy G, but the Niners could have been asking for a first-round pick for him, and or 2 first-round picks, or could have been asking for a lot more of a package than Jimmy G really is worth. But that was an interesting situation. And look, now, and another thing, I'll tell you what, it's going to be fun. Browns-Panthers week 1. So you're going to get a Baker Mayfield right up against his former team right away. That's if Baker Mayfield is the starting quarterback. And reports have it, and what reports have said was Darnold had a good spring, and with the OTAs and all that stuff, mandatory minicamp OTAs, and so far all the other training that they have done, supposedly Darnold has done very well. And as a Jet fan, and there was a guy that tweeted this out the other day, and I thought it was really well said. Darnold's one of those guys that everyone's like, he had a good spring, he had a good summer, he had a really good training camp, really good preseason. And then when he gets to the fall, when he gets to the regular season, Darnold falls apart. And it's the truth. So reports have out of Carolina that Darnold did well in the spring off-season work, the OTAs and stuff. Look, right now Darnold's a starter. So Mayfield's going to have to come in. It is a quarterback competition, but Darnold's the starter. They know Darnold. He was on the team last season, as we all know. He's the starting quarterback. So Mayfield's going to have to come in and take that job from him. So, Mayfield's really going to have to perform. Because if Mayfield's average in training camp, they'll probably go with Darnold. Because he's already in the system. He's already on the team. He's been there for a year now. So, Mayfield's going to have to show up. But very interesting trade. And I'm just happy that this drama's all over with. Because you would have every week, there would be a new report. Seahawks don't want him. Panthers still looking for Mayfield. Browns want to keep Mayfield. This team's interested in Mayfield. It's like it was all over the place. So now we're finally done with. And I got to admit, I think that it is going to make, I will tell you that this is going to make a lot of interesting storylines throughout the offseason. The Darnold and Mayfield come training camp. I think it's going to make a lot of storylines. I do. It's going to be fun it's going to be interesting to see 2 top 3 picks from 2017. 2 guys that were supposed to change their franchises battle it out for a job in which one of them, if they don't get it, will be a backup. It's really interesting. By the way, the full deal is the 2024 fifth round pick that the Browns got will become a 4th rounder if Mayfield plays 70% of the Panthers' offensive snaps this season. So if he starts and he's healthy, that 5th round turns into a 4th round. So if you're a Browns fan, you hope that Mayfield wins the starting job because that 5th round pick will turn into a 4th round pick. Because, obviously, if he wins the starting job and he stays healthy, that will be a 4th round pick. If he doesn't win the starting job and he's a backup, unless if Darnold were to get hurt, then that's going to be a 5th-round pick. I'm just going to read you some of Mayfield's stats. Last season, he had 3,010 yards. That was 24th in the NFL. 17 touchdowns. That was 22nd in the league. 13 interceptions. That was tied for 19th in the league. And he has a QBR of 35.1. That's 27th in the league. So he's 27 years old. Been obviously with Cleveland for 4 years. The one thing I could say about Mayfield is he really hasn't shown that much progress. In 2020, he had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Like, he was better, a lot better in 2020. Browns got to the divisional round and all that. He was a lot better. He was solid. But then last year, he kind of went on to a downfall a little bit. So, it's just interesting. It really is interesting. And like I said this earlier on in the podcast, Mayfield is probably, I would say Mayfield's better than Darnold. I would say that. But it's not a complete, he's better than Darnold. But is he really going to win you more games than Darnold would? I mean, Mayfield, other than last year, he hasn't made the playoffs at all. 3 of his 4 years in the NFL, he hasn't made the playoffs. I mean, Darnold hasn't made it any of the years. But it's same team, same, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm not a big Mayfield guy myself either. I just not. Coming out of college, I actually thought the Jets were going to get him because I thought Darnold was a lock to go number 1. I think everybody saw that coming. But look, he's had, out of his 4 years in his career, he's had 1 really solid year and 3 up and down years where it's kind of all over the place. So if he can find a way to consistent or get that, that line right now that's kind of going up and down, if he can get that to be more consistent, you might see more of a 2020 Baker Mayfield, which was get his team to the divisional round. Obviously, in the postseason, they ended up losing to the Chiefs that year. So it's definitely interesting. And as for Sam Darnold, like I said, Mayfield's 27. Darnold's still only 25. Darnold, as we all know, has been in the league 4 years. Last season struggled too. 9 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So Mayfield's definitely the better quarterback when you look at the numbers. But in terms of actually winning games and in terms of what he can do with this roster, it's interesting. Browns didn't get much back. It's just crazy because when you look at that, it's like Joe Douglas was able to get Darnold for like a 4th-round pick and like a 3rd or something like that. And now Darnold's got to compete for a starting job. So, going to be a lot of storylines coming out of Carolina this year in terms of Mayfield, Darnold battling it out. So, it's going to be definitely interesting as both players try to find their footing on a new team, on a new organization, and see if they can revive their careers. Because right now, Darnold and Mayfield are both looking like draft busts, as we all know. All right, so now let's get into the Yankees game last night. Go from football to a little bit of baseball here. As the New York Yankees absolutely dominated last night with a convincing 16-0 win. Like I've mentioned earlier, it was a game that got delayed an hour. Game ended up starting at 8:14, lasted 3 hours, 21 minutes, ended at 11:35, and the Yankees get the win 16-0. And this is one of these games as a fan where, when it got to 10-0, you kind of are just like, all right, this game's over, and you're kind of just waiting for it to end. And then the Yankees just don't end it. They continue to score more runs. So, like I mentioned earlier, they scored there was no runs in the 1st or the 4th inning. It was kind of just Yankees were leaving a couple runners on. They had a double play. Early on, they had 5 hits across the first 3 innings. So the Yankees were hitting the ball. They were getting to Mitch Keller, who had 6 innings pitched, 10 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. 95 pitches, 60 of those 95 pitches were strikes. And his ERA went from 5.14 to 5.21. So a little bit, so it blossomed a little bit. But Mitch Keller didn't pitch terrible. It was the bullpen. It was the bullpen that came in and allowed 12 of the 16 runs to come across. I should say the bullpen allowed 6 of the 16, because then the pitch position player Van Meter, the second baseman, allowed 6 runs in the 1 inning he pitched. In the 1 inning he pitched, which was the top of the 9th, the Yankees batted through the order, which the Yankees, by the way, batted through the order twice in this game. They batted through the order in the 8th inning, and then they batted through the order again in the 9th inning. And they put up 8 hits, 6 runs, 6 earned on Van Meter, and they did that in 27 pitches. So it wasn't like he was out there throwing 35, 40 pitches. They made contact when they needed to, and the Yankees just batted through the order. And I just want to start by saying this, because you hear these people out there say, oh, the unwritten rules, Yankees are running up the score. And it just boggles my mind because, and you can see maybe the manager by the Pirates was unhappy that the Yankees continue to run up the score. And what gets me most annoyed is the fact that if you're worried about the Yankees running up the score and you don't want them to run up the score, why are you throwing a second baseman out there to pitch? You talk about the unwritten rules in baseball, you talk about the Yankees scoring too many runs when the game's out of reach. Well, if you don't want them to score runs, don't put your second baseman into pitch. Use one of your low-leverage relievers to go out there and get you 3 outs in the 9th inning. I don't want to hear, the unwritten rules, they're taking too many bases. Well, that's because they have a position player out there. Your second baseman's getting absolutely whacked. Aaron Hicks, grand slam, stand, home run. All over the place. If you don't want them to hit, if you don't want them to run up the score, don't put your position player out there to pitch. Throwing 60 miles an hour down home plate, down Broadway, just so they can smack it. Don't do it. And you hear it all the time. The unwritten rules, all this, running up the score, taking too many bases. If you don't want them to run up the score, don't put your second baseman into pitch in the 9th inning. That's what I have to say about that, because I wanted to get that out of the air quickly, because you hear it all the time. Anytime a team puts up a lot of runs and the manager on the other team's complaining or frustrated or, the Yankees are, it got to one point where the Yankees did start to just go bag to bag, where a single or a hit, they would just go to one base. It wouldn't be like a hit, they'd try to stretch it into a double, or a single would score 3 runs. It would be one, if you get a single, guy on first. And if you get another hit, it would just be go to second. But the one thing I will tell you about this too is about the unwritten rules. Like, you can't tell a guy to stand up there and not swing. Like, if they're swinging and hitting home runs, and I think that's the one big thing in baseball. Like, what you should get, if you get a good hit, you get the bases on that, right? Maybe the whole stealing thing, if you don't want to do that, because, all that stuff, fine. You don't have to do that. But you can't tell a baseball player when his job is to go up there and hit. His job is to go up there like a stand, go up there and hit home runs. When it's bases loaded and Hicks, who's had a really tough year, as we all know, went into the game batting .221, a guy that hasn't been very good this season. When he gets an opportunity with bases loaded, he wants to take advantage of it. What is he going to do? Stand up there and watch 3 pitches down the middle? So I just wanted to get that out of the way quickly, because you hear it time and time and time again. Unwritten rules, running up the score. Well, who is pitching for the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 9th inning? Their second baseman. If you don't want them to run up the score, don't throw your second baseman out there, because you're basically waving the white flag at that point. So it's not even like you want to be out there. Put one of your low leverage relievers in. I know they went through 3 guys in the bullpen, but you could put a low leverage reliever in there. Put a guy that's not in there in big situations. I understand you don't want to waste arms, but if you're going to come back with the, and also in the inning you had you did have Fleff up, who had a very good game. He had 2 singles in the inning, and that's something I'll touch upon here. Fleff has been good. Played really well last night. He had 4 hits. He went 4 for 6, 3 runs scored. And by the way, something that's interesting to take away from this game, because oftentimes you look at the box score and you look at who got hits, who didn't. Everybody on the Yankees roster yesterday, not roster, I shouldn't say, because Rizzo and Trevino didn't come in, but everybody in the Yankees lineup yesterday that played, that had an at-bat, all got hits. LeMahieu had 3 hits, Judge had 3 hits, Gonzalez, who came in for Judge, had a hit. Hicks, as we all know, had 2 hits, one of those being a grand slam. Stan had a hit. Torres had 2 hits. Donaldson had 2 hits. Gallo had a hit. Yes, Gallo had a hit. I know that's surprising, but he did. Fleff had 4 hits, including 2 in the same inning. And that's something that you don't see very often. 2 in the same inning. He started the 9th inning with a single, and then he got up again in the 9th, had another single. So he had 4 hits, and Higgy as well had himself a night with 2 hits. So in total, that was 22 hits by the New York Yankees and 16 runs. They did leave 11 on base. No errors, played clean in the field, did their job. And in these games, you often in these games you look at how the pitching did or how the hitting did. But they can't go without being you can't go without ignoring the fact that Severino was phenomenal last night. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs or walks, commanded the zone, was efficient. Probably could have went out there for one more inning, but with the Yankees already up by 4 at that point, I don't think Boone really wanted to stretch him. It wasn't like it was a 1-0 game. Yankees had a 4-run cushion, and they were doing, the Pirates' bats were pretty quiet. They only had 4 hits last night, had an error as well, left 5 on base. He had 3 strikeouts, and that's one thing that's Severino. And that's one thing I always say, strikeouts in baseball are great. You want to go strike out 15, that's great. Scherzer did it the other night. He struck out 11. That was a season high for him. That's great. Good. But you also like sometimes when guys are, getting ground balls, getting weak pop-ups, getting weak flyouts. Sure, your defense is going to make some plays. Sure, you're going to want them to make some plays for you. But it is good sometimes. Severino last night only had 3 strikeouts. But sometimes those are the games that get you most deep into games because you're not working into those deep 5-6 pitch counts. You might be a pitch or 2 and then boom, a ground ball. You might work a quick 7-pitch inning instead of a automatic 3 pitch count. So he was working well. His ERA went from 3.35 to start the game to 3.11. Went into the game with a 4-3 record, came out of it with the win, 5-3. By the way, Mitch Keller got the loss, so he moves to 2-6 on the season. Not that win-loss record means much, but Severino this year has been great. He's been the pitcher that we saw, prior to the Tommy John, which is good to see. He threw 88 pitches last night at 58 strikes, so he was efficient. Definitely way more strikes than balls, and the Yankees bullpen held it down. 3 innings, no hits. The only walk was Abreu, who walked Madras, who came in to pinch hit for Reynolds in the 9th inning. That was it. After that, it was a lot of quick innings for Peralta, who threw 13 pitches, 8 strikes. He had a strikeout, no hits, runs, or walks in the 7th. And Chapman, and I know a lot of people, want to still criticize Chapman, and rightfully so, you could still. But Chapman's had back-to-back 2 good performances. He pitched on Tuesday night, pitched well, quick inning, 10 pitches I think it was. And then he pitched again last night, and it was another 10-pitch inning, 7 strikes, only threw 3 balls, was efficient with it. Like I said, he got the line out to LeMahieu, he struck out Van Meter, and then he struck out Hayes as well. Not struck out Hayes, I apologize. Hayes flew out to left as well, who at that time, Gonzalez was in left, with Gallo moving over to right, Hicks coming into center, Judge obviously taking a seat. Judge, by the way, also had a grand slam. So there was 2 grand slams last night for the Yankees. Judge had a grand slam in the 8th inning, and like I said, Hicks also had a grand slam. Carpenter as well got the game started off with a double. He was the 3rd batter in the order after LeMahieu grounded out to first, and then a strikeout looking by Judge. Carpenter got the hit rally, hits going. So he started off the game with the first hit, and the last hit was by Higashioka. That was a single. He ended up getting out by a fielder's choice. By LeMahieu, who grounded into a fielder's choice. And I gotta admit, a lot of people want to panic after a loss like Tuesday night, where the Yankees did not play well, lost to a lousy Pirates team. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are criticizing some guys in this roster a little too much. Falefa, I think he's getting a lot of criticism, and I think it's not really warranted. Going into last night's game, he was batting .267. Sure, he hasn't hit a home run, but he comes out of the game batting .276. He's got 19 home runs this year. Or 19 home runs, I apologize. 19 RBIs this season. And Fleff was one of those guys that he's not going to hit for power. He's not going to crank in, 35 home runs. In his career, this is his 5th year in the MLB. At the age of 27, he's had 16 home runs in his entire career. Career high, 8 home runs. That was last season. He averages 3 home runs a year. He's not a power hitter. But what he's done is what we all expected him to do. He's going to be a 260, 265. When he's hot, he'll go up to 270, which right now is hot, 276. 2 hits, like I said, in 1 inning yesterday. 4 total. He's been good. I think a lot of people are criticizing him a little too much. He's been good. I mean, look at him last night, 4 hits. Like I said, two in that 9th inning. He had 1 in the 5th, and then the other one came in the 8th, which is also when they batted through the order. So, batting through the order is one thing. Batting through the order twice in the game. And I believe, if my memory serves me correct, and I can go back here, but I recall the Yankees. What was it? The Yankees batted through the order against the Cubs. When they beat the Cubs 18-4, Yankees batted through the order in that game twice. But I think they batted through the order. It was like in the 3rd inning, and then they batted through the order again in like the 7th inning or something. And this game, however, they batted through the order twice as well, but it was back-to-back innings. Batted through the order in the 8th inning, and then batted through the order again in the 9th inning. And in the 9th inning, they actually got through again, because Fleffa got on, Higgy got on, and then LeMahieu grounded to the fielder's choice. So they got back to the top of the order when they batted through the order. So a lot of action in last night's game, and a lot of very good action for the Yankees. Like I said, all 16 runs came from the 5th through the 9th. 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th, 5 in the 8th, 6 in the 9th. And it's funny because sometimes these games, and this happens, they start out normal. It was 0-0 going to the top of the 5th. You assumed, okay, this might be a 2-1, 3-1 type game. Nope, Yankees had other plans. 2 in the 5th, like I said, 4 total in the 5th and the 6th. And then, just for good measure, in the 9th, just to give Albert Abreu and their bullpen a little bit more cushion, they put up 6 more in the 9th to make it a 10-0 game to a 16-0 game. So, game started, like I said, 8:14, ended at 11:35, 3 hours, 21 minutes. Attendance for last night's game was 32,414, and the capacity for PNC Park in Pittsburgh is 38,362. So, 2 big crowds the past 2 days. And I think somebody brought it up. I don't know if it was somebody that brought it up on the broadcast or it was in one of the post-game things that they said. But the Yankees this season, and you see it all the time, Yankees draw big crowds, Dodgers will draw a big crowd, Mets too, I'm sure, will probably draw a big crowd. I mean, Mets got the 7 line, so they always show up to the road games. The big franchises out there, they draw big crowds. And if a team's having a big year, they'll draw a big crowd. Certain players too. People are going to go pay to watch Mike Trout, right? They're going to go pay a ticket to watch Mike Trout. People are going to go pay to watch Shohei Ohtani, right? People are going to go pay to watch Yankees and specifically Aaron Judge. People are going to want to watch Jacob deGrom pitch, want to watch Garrett Cole pitch, want to watch Nestor Cortez pitch. So you're always going to get bigger tickets. You're always going to get bigger, attendance for those games. But it's funny because the Yankees, every time they go on the road this season, like the attendance is so high. Pirates, they don't get many people going. I mean, geez, the Pirates are 33-48. They're way back in the NL Central. Going into yesterday, they were 13 or 12 and a half games back in the NL Central. Like I said, 15 games below 500. They're not a good team. And on a typical Thursday night, if they were playing like, I don't know, the Reds or something, and they were getting smashed 16-0, that stadium probably would have been almost empty. But it's crazy how many people actually stuck around. Because the night prior, on Tuesday night, it was a sellout. And it was the first Pirates sellout I think they were saying they had in like 3 years. And then last night, yet again, 38,362 stadium capacity and 32,414 showed up. So it was another big crowd. And the Yankees, every time they go on the road, and they were saying this yesterday in the broadcast, like I said, they're going to get teams' best chances. They're going to get a big crowd. There's going to be a big following. It's going to be, a little bit more intensity, a little bit more energy, a little bit more, maybe seem like the game's got a little bit more stakes just because of the fact that there's going to be big crowds and they continue everywhere they travel, even in Cleveland. there was a big crowd. And that's also because the Yankees are such a big, big brand. There's Yankee fans spread across the U.S. all over the place. Yankees are such a big-time, big-name organization spread across. I'm sure there's also a lot of Yankee fans out there that, will travel out and watch different games. And, I was saying the other day, I'm sure there was a lot of Yankee fans that took the trip from Cleveland, went out to Cleveland, watched the 3-game series there, and then drove the 2-hour ride to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh and Cleveland are only about 2 hours apart. So, it's been cool to see. And last night, Yankee fans, they were at the game last night, which there was a whole lot of them, saw a pretty good show. So Yankees improved to 59-23 on the season. And what's crazy about this all is that was their 82nd game last night. So for the Yankee fan out there that might not fully understand what this team is doing in terms of fully taking it in, the success that this team is having, this time last year, 82 games into the season. This year, like I said, I'm going to say this one more time here. They're 59-23 this year, 82 games into the season. Last year, 82 games into the season, they were 41-41. So they were sitting at 500 through 82 games last year. Now this year, they're standing at 36 games above 500? So a big game, big difference between last year and this year. And just to put in perspective of how special this season has been so far. 36 games above 500 for the New York Yankees. And they get a big win, 16-0. Was phenomenal and a lot of fun to watch last night. All right, so let's get to the New York Sports Update and the rest of the baseball and all that good stuff going on here today. We'll actually start off with fantasy. Because we'll go to the baseball games on tonight. So a couple day games today. You got a game right now in progress. Royals Astros just starting up. Then you have the Pirates Reds, Nationals Phillies, Angels Orioles, Reds Pirates. That will be a doubleheader today. Braves Cardinals, Tigers White Sox, Giants Padres, Rockies Diamondbacks, Mariners Blue Jays, Cubs Dodgers. Mets, Marlins tonight. Mets come into tonight's game 51-31. Marlins come into tonight's game 39-41, 7:10 Eastern on SNY. Marlins have Daniel Castano on the mound. He's 1-1 with a 2.42 ERA, and the Mets have Trevor Williams on the mound. He's 1-5 with a 4.43 or 4.34 rather. Over-under for that game set at 8. So last night was David Peterson. Tonight's Trevor Williams. So 2 kind of spot starts for the Mets as they look to open up the 4-game set back at City against the Marlins on a high note. As for the Yankees, they'll be in action tonight, 7:10 Eastern on Yes Network. Open up a 4-game set against the Red Sox. Yankees are 59-23. Red Sox are 45-37. Yankees have Garrett Cole on the mound. He's 7-2 with a 2.99 ERA. And the Red Sox have Winkowski on the mound. He's 3-2 with a 3.12 ERA. Over-under set at 9 for that game. All right, and as for fantasy baseball, I'm currently winning in both leagues and winning big in both leagues. I'm winning in my main league 176-103. I've got my usual lineup. It stinks because what's-his-face is hurt. Gurriel's hurt. So, and Moncada's got a right foot contusion. So most likely he won't really be in action much tonight, I assume. But I got Realmuto, Vaughn, Torres, Bregman, Urshela, India, Gurriel, Judge, Gurriel Jr., Blackman. Gurriel's hurt. He's not playing tonight, I don't think. He isn't starting tonight. Or today, I should say. Walsh, Dozier, and Vasquez. Logan Webb and Tony Gonsolin are the guys I got on the mound. And as for fantasy baseball, our other league, I'm winning 171-104. I've got Realmuto, LeMahieu, Bregman, Bichette, Torres, Crone, Springer, Merrifield, Teoscar Hernandez, Blackman, Drury, and Juan Soto. And I got Joe Musgrove and Logan Webb on the mound as well. Like I said, in my other league, I got Logan Webb and Tony Gonsolin. So seeing how all that goes should be good. By the way, there's been a flurry of NHL moves that have gone on today, and I'm aware of that. Today there was Chris Letang signed a big 6-year deal. He's 35 years old, but signed a big 6-year extension, $36 million, to stay with the Penguins. So I'm going to talk about that. And the Rangers traded Alexander Georgiev. So I'm going to talk about that as well. So I plan on doing that tomorrow. Definitely talk about Georgiev. If another big story pops up involving New York sports, then I'll also talk about something else. But I plan on tomorrow being more of a hockey podcast, I guess. I mean, 2 hockey topics, I guess. But anything could change, like I said. Anything could happen in sports where, and if another big thing in sports happens, like a massive, massive trade or Kevin Durant gets traded, I'm going to talk about that. But I wanted to get to Georgiev as well. I thought the Rangers got a good return in that trade. So we'll talk about that tomorrow and all that good stuff to wrap up the week. So anyway, that will do it for the podcast here today. Another good podcast in the books. As you all know, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.